The coronavirus actually helped a number of businesses, including their personal protection business, electronics, and water filtration. The stock is up this morning on the news, as you can see there, with a gain of better than 2%. Marathon Petroleum also on the rise this morning after posting a smaller loss than expected. It took a $12.4 billion hit as fuel demand plummeted. The stock up 4 2/3%. After the bell tonight, investors will turn their attention to Disney as theme parks remain closed, live sports are on hold, and most movie theaters are empty. The virus taking a toll on businesses for sure. Gold's Gym becomes the latest to file for bankruptcy protection today, and Hertz also reportedly preparing to file bankruptcy protection this week. Plus, growing concerns over shortages of meat. Costco and other major grocery chains are limiting customer purchases. Morning to 3 is live right now. And global markets this morning taking a cue from Wall Street. European indices are higher across the board. FT 100 up 82, CAC 40 in Paris up 72, and the DAX index in Germany up 166. A top German court giving the European Central Bank a 3-month ultimatum to fix its quantitative easing program. Says it needs to justify the bond buying program. In Asia overnight, markets in Japan, China, and South Korea were closed for holidays, although in Hong Kong, we saw buying. Gains, as you see, as the government announced some businesses can reopen later this week. They include gyms, beauty parlors, and movie theaters. The Hang Seng up better than 1% overnight in Hong Kong. Oil prices are up for a 5th consecutive session. Take a look at the price of oil this morning at $22.48 a barrel. That is up 209, 10.25% higher on the price of oil. Joining the conversation this morning, Dagan McDowell, Mark Tepper, and Maddie Duppler. Great to see everybody this morning. What a jam-packed show.
Indeed, Maria. Good morning.
And some of the top stories that we are watching this morning, officials are warning of a possible surge in coronavirus cases as states begin to reopen their economies. The University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation now projecting the U.S. death toll could reach 135,000 by August. That's double the initial projection as states relax social distancing rules. An internal document from FEMA, meanwhile, is claiming by the end of this month there will be 200,000 new cases and 3,000 deaths every day. That is a significant jump from the current numbers of roughly 25,000 new cases and 1,700 deaths each day. The White House this morning is shooting down that report, saying that it did not come from the administration and has not been presented to the coronavirus task force. Meanwhile, President Trump is getting out of the White House today for the first time in a while. He heads to Phoenix, Arizona to tour a Honeywell aerospace plant that's making masks. The Food and Drug Administration cracking down on COVID-19 antibodies tests that may not actually work. The agency requiring companies making the test kits to provide evidence of their accuracy and sensitivity within 10 days. The test can tell whether a person has been exposed to coronavirus. The FDA has already approved an antibody test kit made by Roche Holdings, and I spoke with the company's CEO yesterday.
And what we have seen with our test is really extraordinary results in terms of reliability. A sensitivity of 100%, specificity of 99.8%. So this is really fabulous results.
Roche plans to make millions of the tests this month and 100 million a month by the end of the year from Roche. Apple and Google, meanwhile, banning location tracking apps that use a new coronavirus contact tracing system. The move is to help protect privacy and prevent governments from compiling data on citizens. But some health officials and developers of official coronavirus apps are arguing that not allowing the use of GPS location data will cause them to miss encounters and not adequately track how outbreaks move. This is an important story that we'll keep watching. Well, just when you thought 2020 could not get any worse, murder hornets have been spotted in the United States for the first time. The Asian giant hornet has the potential to devastate the nation's already declining bee population. At 2 inches long, they are the world's largest hornets with a sting that could kill humans if stung multiple times. The murder hornets were first spotted in Washington state in December. And now, jobs in America. We are just days away from what's anticipated to be an unprecedented April jobs report. The U.S. economy projected to lose nearly 22 million jobs, with the unemployment rate hitting 16%, the highest on record. Friday's upcoming report will capture the full impact of the coronavirus lockdowns that began in mid-March. Joining me right now to talk about that is the U.S. Labor Secretary. Eugene Scalia. And Mr. Secretary, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Maria. Good to be back with you. And yes, it'll be an important
So
and interesting report that we put out on Friday.
How should we be looking at these reports, Secretary? Because I know that right now we are in a moment in time that hopefully will go away at some point. But we are in a moment in time where we're seeing a very sharp, steep contraction for the second quarter, could be as high as 30%. Unemployment numbers continuing to rise. We see that every week with the benefits. Should we just ignore these numbers and think, well, those jobs will come back? Should we be looking at those numbers and saying, well, we are falling further into recession, which could get worse? How do you read these numbers?
Maria, I think you put your finger on a really important issue, how to view these. I think first we have to recognize that these reports reflect millions, actually tens of millions of Americans who are out of work right now. And that's difficult, it's painful, and the president has done all he can and continues to do all he can to try to address that. At the same time, as you're suggesting, we got to this point by a completely different route than in past economic downturns. There was not some fundamental underlying weakness. We had a really strong economy. These were public health measures. Those measures are now gradually and thoughtfully being lifted, which gives me reason for confidence in a rebound that's different than what we've seen in the past.
And yet some companies will not be able to get to that rebound. We're looking at a list that is growing of bankruptcies. Hertz about to go bankrupt. You've got Gold's Gym going bankrupt. J. Crew. A number of companies will not be able to make it out of this period. So what about that? Will those companies come back? Will the jobs come back once things normalize again?
Well, I think the president and Congress have taken measures to try to keep those jobs in place. We've talked before about the Paycheck Protection Program and the value that has, from my perspective, at the Labor Department in keeping those businesses afloat, but also keeping workers tied to the business. So as we reopen, and as we're doing now, those workers have a job, those businesses have workers. There are going to be some businesses that are challenged, but others that are thriving, stepping up, doing great things. By the way, I'm going to be joining the president today on this trip to Arizona, a Honeywell facility that's going to be making N95 masks. Part of the great story of how American business is really coming to help the American people right now as we try to pull through this problem.
And I love that story, and I'm thrilled that you're going to be with the president this morning at Honeywell. You look at Honeywell making masks, you look at General Motors making ventilators. I mean, business has truly stepped up, and it's very nice to see. But I want to get back to the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, because there are some expectations out there that you will loosen the rules. We talked before about the 75-25. 75% of the loan has to go right out the window to employees so that the employees get compensated, leaving only 25% of that loan to pay for things like rent and business expenses. A lot of businesses I've spoken with feel that that's too tight, that's too stringent, they have to pay. In fact, I've been talking a lot about restaurants, that those restaurants, they're not going to be able to stay open. They're going to probably go bankrupt. But yesterday I heard from a friend who's also a designer and a retailer, and she said to me, many of our retail accounts are using grant for stock, not staff. And they will be shocked that there's no forgiveness because it makes no sense to them to use so much for staff unless they have something to sell. So, there will be many disappointed folks not understanding the 75% payroll. Will you move to loosen these rules?
Well, the Paycheck Protection Program has just been an extraordinary success, Maria. As we've discussed before, I think its greatest challenge has been its popularity. And in the first round of funding, we had 1.6 million businesses get loans. In this latest round, already 2.2 million U.S. businesses getting loans, which says to me that we've got now smaller businesses are doing a better job taking advantage of the program and getting that funding that helps them keep their workers on payroll. That said, this program was designed as a paycheck protection program. It was meant to help workers in substantial part. It won't be all things to all people. The Treasury, the Fed have other programs that are also available to help small businesses. I know that Secretary Mnuchin, Administrator Carranza will continue to evaluate the program and operate it as best they can, but keeping workers on payroll was a fundamental goal of that program.
How about about the 8-week period? You can get the loan forgiven if it's 8 weeks. Will you loosen that? Will you give more time so that businesses can have an opportunity to open? A lot of these businesses, they're getting the loans, but they're still in shutdown.
Well, but we're reopening now. Arizona, where I'll be going with the president today, is in the process of reopening now. A majority of states are doing that. So, yeah, there are certain limits that Congress itself put on the program. That the 8 weeks is one of them. But I think, again, that the program is doing wonderful things for tens of millions of workers actually across the country.
So what you're saying is no changes to the program?
Well, what I'm saying is it's working extraordinarily well, but I'm saying as well that Secretary Mnuchin and Administrator Carranza continue to take a look at it and make sure it is working as intended.